What's up, everyone? We're going to be covering a topic nobody has heard of before, ranking Kanye albums. So...
Valid.
Number 11. What do you all think is the worst Kanye album?
It seems that we all agree that it is
Jesus is King.
Whoa.
See, I kind of wish this album never came out because the memes about it not coming out were way more enjoyable than the album.
Super valid. Yeah, honestly.
I hear that. I think that some of the hate that Jesus King gets is really from, like, it not being... What was the album that was supposed to come out?
Yandi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Jeff, by the way.
Oh, hey,
yeah.
yes.
I have a friend Jeff on the channel, too.
Hey, how's it going? I am Jeff.
He's a Kanye stan, so...
Yeah.
Yes,
he likes Kanye more than we do. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that a lot of the hate comes from it not being Yandi. I mean, some of the Yandi leaks were just absolutely ridiculous, and then we get Jesus is King, and I'm not sure.
I think part of it's a subject matter, too. I think Kanye's listener base doesn't tend to be super religious.
Yeah,
You know?
but I mean, and here's where my stanhood comes into question. Kendrick always does his religious aspects really well, and everyone finds them engaging.
That's fair. Yeah. Yeah, I think that this was more like a church choir type of thing. It was more religious music than hip-hop that covers topics of religion.
Fair enough. I mean, if anyone can make it work, though, it
would be Kanye, of course.
So
Yeah.
I don't necessarily say, like, oh, it just didn't do well because of the type of music.
Yeah.
He's the guy who would make it work.
But at the end of the day with this album, it kind of did flop. I don't hear anybody really talking about this album anymore unless it's in the context of it being Kanye's worst album. You do have some people here and there that say, oh, it's not as bad as everyone says, or people who say that it's a good album and somewhere not at the bottom of his discography, but I think that that's more the exception and not the rule.
Follow God's kind of a banger, though.
Follow God is kind of a banger.
God, Use This Gospel. Solid songs.
Use This Gospel is great. I was pumped for the Clips reunion.
Yeah.
Great beat. I mean,
it had its moments. The album had its moments. It's not a terrible album by any means.
No, it's, for it being 30 minutes, I think I could get through it without really skipping anything and be like, yeah, like, whatever, on my way to work.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
in the context of one of the greatest hip-hop discographies, it's just at the bottom.
Yeah.
Which is not a slight to it. It's just not great.
This doesn't match up well.
Yeah.
So do we want to spend some time talking about better albums? And
Yeah. So let's move on.
Moving on to Graduation, which we all have as the second worst album.
We all have as the second worst.
Which might be a hot take, but...
It depends on who you ask. I know a lot of people who think of this as being one of his best albums, and usually those people have the first three albums as his best three. Those people aren't going to really like this discography ranking.
Yeah.
But definitely think Kanye found more in his artistry with time as he continued to evolve as an artist.
I do love some of these songs. Sorry for cutting you off. Go on.
No, I agree. Like, I think what Kanye was trying to do with this album, he did very well. Like, the build-up to it was, I want to perform in arenas. This is going to be an album or, a collective of music that's going to fare well in the arena setting when performed live. And
it was meant to have hits.
Yeah.
And it did.
It has hits.
Yeah.
Stronger. I mean... absolute banger, I think. I'm a huge Daft Punk fan, so hearing that when I was like 10 when it came out was sick. And then
Can't Tell Me Nothing, Flashing Lights.
Flashing Lights is another just absolute.
I love I Wonder too.
I Wonder's good. I think Flashing Lights is my pick for the best song on the album.
It's fair.
It's understandable.
It defines sort of what the album's about, and that looking at yourself in the rock star persona very well, and I think it just sounds the best of any of the songs on the album overall. But there are definitely some flops on here. Barry Bonds and Drunk and Hot Girls back to back is not his best run.
No, it isn't.
That's a low point in probably his whole career.
It's only uphill from here.
Yeah.
I mean, Graduation. Nothing necessarily wrong with it. It's a good hits album. It's a good album for its time, but I do think that it aged pretty poorly. I think that in the context of more modern hip-hop hits, it doesn't hold up as well throughout, besides some of the songs that we mentioned, which have achieved this sort of timeless classic status.
Especially Drunk and Hot Girls.
Yeah, Drunk and Hot Girls,
yeah.
But still a solid album. Just definitely not one of his best in my estimation. The production's not as full and meaningful, nor is the sort of artistic vision he has overall for how the songs tie together to create more of a point in his life defining experience that most Kanye albums come to represent.
Very fair. I like how we all have it at 10.
We all have it at 10
on our ranking, but
yeah.
On just the slide, if you took it by itself, it looks like we all gave it a 10.
We all gave it a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Perfect
10 out of
album.
10. Great album.
All right.
Best
That
of all
being
time.
said, best album of all time.
Yeah.
Moving on. Watch the Throne.
Watch the Throne. This.
We all have it a 9.
Yeah.
9 out of 10.
A lot of agreement so far.
Yeah, we're 3 for 3.
Yeah.
Watch the Throne was. It came out at the right time for me. I was like just a freshman in high school. Like I wasn't really like looking for anything like too deep in music. I mean, No Church in the Wild with Frank coming off of like Channel Orange was just absolutely
so dope.
Oh my goodness,
So dope.
really really great. I think Paris and Otis are two absolute bangers. I remember watching the music video for Otis and being like, "This is the coolest thing ever."
Yeah.
But what do you think? What do you have to say?
I think that the album is good in what it's intending to do. I think that Jay and Ye played off each other pretty well in terms of rapping, especially the bars in the album I like a lot. I think that the production was also really good for what they were intending to do. I just don't know if I think that their sort of vision for the album was as compelling as what I see in Kanye and Cudi's collaboration a few years down the road. I think that it is very much a product of its time. I listened to it and it puts me in 2011 versus just being an album that I experience as a holistic piece. I do like the album a lot, but it does feel top heavy to me. I really
Absolutely.
do. Yeah, I really do gravitate towards those top tracks. No Church in the Wild, Otis, N-Words in Paris. But other than that, Murdered Excellence too, I definitely listen to fairly frequently.
Murdered Excellence is I don't hear anybody really ever talk about that song. I think
Yeah.
it might. You could argue that it's the high point of the album.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It definitely is really good.
Hearing Who Gon' Stop Me at the time, like I was a huge like dubstep head, so hearing that was like the first song I think I heard like a big rapper sample from dubstep.
Sure.
I don't think it aged well at all. I can't really listen to it. I can't really listen to it now, but the enjoyment I got out of it, being 14, was just absolutely like sky high.
Yeah, I mean, for our age group, being people in our young 20s, this is peak middle school dance music.
Absolutely.
But
I was playing Call of Duty Black Ops until 3 in the morning when I had school the next day, listening to this album.
Yeah, I'm curious what people who are like 15 right now think of this album. I feel like they probably don't tend to like it as much.
I mean, we do have it as our third worst.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
True.
It's not we're rating it super highly.
Yeah.
I don't think
9 out of 10.
I don't think that Jay-Z translates well to kids who are like 15 now. I think that would be the big thing, you know?
He really is more of a 2000s hits artist, and he really hasn't had a whole ton in terms of chart toppers in the most recent decade.
He didn't even drop his best stuff when we were that age. It was even, you could argue it was ahead of our time, you know?
I mean, I think that Run This Town and sort of bringing Rihanna into the scene had some impact more on our generation, but he definitely is more of an older age bracket there.
Yeah, I think he bridged the gap.
Yeah, no, I think so too.
Yeah,
I think that he sort of is one of those pioneers of a new wave of hip-hop.
Yeah. I mean, there would be no Kanye without him, so...
Sure, but I do think that their best work together is just Kanye producing for Jay. I definitely think that The Blueprint is the best album that is by both of them.
Yeah.
So,
on to the next one.
The next one,
Keep
we
going.
have Ye, and you guys both have it ranked 8, and I have it as 7.
Which I love as a take. I mean, I love Ye. Like, Ye
I
is
love Ye, too.
Ye is an album that, I mentioned it with Jesus King. It's a 30-minute album. It's something that I don't mind just listening to all the way through. I remember I downloaded Wave, an app that is no longer available. It just went under to like watch the listening party in Jackson Hole. and hearing everything for the first time, I was just like, this is dope. Like, the Surgical Summer.
Yeah, that was such a great time, just getting all of those back to back.
Just week after Friday.
Every single weekend, something to look forward to.
Yep.
But that is the big thing for me with this album, is because it was released at that time, it is just so overshadowed for me in comparison to the other albums, specifically being Daytona, and then more specifically Kids See Ghosts, because I think that the vision, the statement, the intent of both of these albums are really similar. And to have Kids See Ghosts come out, what was it, the next week, 2 weeks after?
The next week. I believe it was Daytona. Yay.
Daytona was first. Daytona, yay, Kids See Ghosts, and then Tiana Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it just immediately overshadowed it. I came out of this album loving Ghost Town a lot. I remember listening to the opening party there, and I heard I Thought About Killing You and thinking that it was kind of nonsense. Yeah. But I've come around to it a little bit. I think this album has some good moments. I like Yikes a lot as a banger. I think that he has some good ideas on here overall. Ghost Town, Violent Crimes.
I like I like the dialogue. Just kind of, like you mentioned, like I Thought About Killing You being nonsense. I think it's supposed to be, and given like everything that was going on with him very publicly at the time. You know, I think that. I heard that like Ghost Town was supposed to be on Kids See Ghosts, and I'm glad for Ye's sake that didn't happen. That didn't happen, because I
almost wish for Kids See Ghosts' sake that it did. Because
then it would be ninth. It wouldn't be as bad as Jesus King, but I should say not as bad. It just, you know, Ghost Town, I think we could all agree, is the high point.
I don't think it's as... I agree it's the best track, but I don't think it's as much of a standout as you guys do. I think this album is pretty damn consistent throughout. I think that... And I don't necessarily find this all that often in Kanye's discography, that I actually love I Thought About Killing You, because it's this, like, messy, raw track. Where I feel like a lot of Kanye stuff is, like, very well produced.
Very opulent.
Yeah. Whereas this is a little bit stripped down, raw. This is him just speaking his mind in whatever form it takes, and I appreciate it. I think that Yikes, as you said, is really fantastic. I love No Mistakes. And then Ghost Town, Violent Crimes, All Mine and Wouldn't Leave. I actually always mix up. One of them's nonsense and one of them's pretty good. I think Wouldn't Leave is pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
But I think this track list is pretty damn consistent, pretty damn airtight. I love this album. I think that it doesn't necessarily reach some of the high points that his other albums do, but my criticism is certainly not inconsistency.
Sure. I think that you guys make a good point with him talking about his struggles that he's going through at the time very openly and in a real light with I Thought About Killing You. I guess just looking at it at the time and not really having any time to digest it, just seeing Kanye basically talking in the premiere of an album, I was thinking it was nonsense. I do see what you're saying where it has that realistic impact. I'm just very used to seeing artists talk about sensitive issues like that in a way where they are portraying it very passionately, very beautifully, in a way that is connecting and understanding with the listeners. I'm not really sure if this achieved that in a way that I would really value, but I can appreciate your point that it's a more realistic sense of your sort of mental confusion when you're in that state.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was trying to necessarily craft a beautiful song.
Yeah.
But I definitely do think that it connects.
Yeah.
I think that it does land. He's...
Sure.
In how direct he is, I think that it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something that we may not understand either is, you know, obviously the discussion of, you know, mental illness in the album, but I think more so mental illness is like the man of the household, being married, being a father, which, you know, is something that I personally can't relate to, you know what I mean? I haven't talked to anybody who loves the album who has kids, who is the provider for their family and like all that. Sure. But it you know, I think that just adds another dimension to things of him, like...
Sure, that weight of that responsibility weighing on him along with his...
diagnosis, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that comes out really well in Violent Crimes and Wouldn't Leave, if I'm correct in that.
Yeah.
Where it's interesting because, like, at the end of Pablo, it's like he's found Kim, or also at the end of Yeezus, but it's like he's found Kim and that's sort of been his
story for the last few
his like emotional rock, and I like in this album we see that play out
Yeah.
He's already found her, and we kind of see that effect that it's had on him.
Yeah, I think
after the fact.
Yeah, and I think that this album is him kind of coming to terms with the fact that that his struggle with mental illness, being a family man, like everything he does is so public. So I think that him taking, or coming to terms with that is shown on this album.
Approach, sure.
Because this was the first album that came out after The Life of Pablo, and he didn't, North was just a baby. He didn't have his other children.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's stuff going on in his marriage, and then obviously his bipolar diagnosis, the very, viral tweets,
Definitely.
stuff that we remember quite well.
Yeah, I'm nice at ping pong.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I'm a fix Wolves.
Oh, I'm so excited for the the Joe Rogan podcast. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah, whenever that happens.
If it happens, but it'll be great.
Cool.
All right, next album.
Next we got 808s and Heartbreak, which Mark, you have as number 7. I have it as number 8, and Jeff has it at number 6.
Yeah. I think, so, something that I'm kind of realizing now, like, talking about the album, right, or talking about, like, Kanye's discography, we touched on it with, I Thought About Killing You, is, like, it's the first track of every Kanye album kind of, like, just grabs you. Like, it isn't, like, a very soft opening, right? Like, I Thought About Killing You is, like, absolutely, like, out of left field.
On the nose, yeah.
I think that Say You Will, especially given the time it came out and how Kanye was perceived in the public eye, and like following up Graduation,
rockstar, yeah.
It grabs you, like it's just just the bare like kind of like vocal, like I'm not sure what you would call it, the like
ballady,
the synths alternating from like left to right. It's so much different than Graduation, and I think it's something that like Kanye very intentionally does with his first tracks is shows you the contrast between his growth. Yeah, and it just, like I said, it grabs you, it doesn't let you go. It says, this is what the album is about, kind of like deal with it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think the fact that he was able to do that successfully really does kind of play into the influence of this album, where it's like what used to be a rock star stadium player is now someone who's talking about their emotions, and I think that did a lot to shape rap in the coming years.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the key things to talk about this album, is this is really the most influential album of probably our lifetime.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, having the instrumental stylistic influences it has, the 808s and the vocal influences with auto-tune usage, and you can see it all throughout pop. You see it with the evolution of Drake and him coming to be the biggest star of the most recent decade. You see it in pretty much every genre and every popular artist now. They sound like they took something away from this album. So I think that's really great about it. But the album itself, I think it's good, but I don't think it's one of his best. And for me, largely that's because it's a tale of two halves. I adore the first half of this album. I generally don't gravitate more towards the hits over some of the deeper cuts, but on this one I really do feel like the hits stick out. I guess Welcome to Heartbreak wouldn't be that much of a hit, but it is on the first half and is probably the best song in my estimation, besides maybe Heartless, which I love.
Not taking Welcome to Heartbreak.
Sure, but that first half overall is just a banger, but well thought out, heartfelt song after another. It's consistently excellent. I will listen to the first half of this album very frequently, but the entirety of this album much less frequently. Because the second half, it doesn't have the flair, the excitement, the engagement, the emotional expression that the first half does to me. I think that it has some good moments. I do like Coldest Winter. I'm not really sure what the public perception of that song is, but that's one of the standouts from the second half for me. But all in all, influential, good album, but not one of my favorites from Kanye still.
I think for me, like, one of my favorite deeper cuts has to be like Streetlights. I think it's a song that doesn't get the attention that I feel it deserves.
Yeah.
That could just be like, like
overshadowed by the other
opinion.
Lights series songs.
Yeah, right, all of them.
Ultralight theme.
Streetlights, like, I'm a big, like, listening to music in the car. Like, there are times where I just hop in the car, I listen to music, and Streetlights is one of those songs that, like, I can't help but seek out in certain situations, right? Like, same thing with like Say You Will. I think that hopping on the freeway at like 2 a.m. No cars on the road, just like doing 75 on the highway. Yeah, I think Say You Will is great. I think Streetlights obviously fits pretty well with the setting that I'm trying to describe here. But I think you kind of hit it on the head in terms of influence, right? You brought up Drake, but like we also need to talk about like Kid Cudi's start. I don't think Future for sure. I don't think that Future would be around if it weren't for for 808s.
I mean, I really do think that you have the two pillars of sort of mid to late 2000s rap being Kanye and Lil Wayne, and I see a lot of the evolution of trap on the side that I feel Future is as being more of a product of Lil Wayne, where I'd see people more in the psychedelic zone, more of the Travis Scott and Young Thug sort of side of trap being more Kanye influenced. So I don't know if I'd say that Future wouldn't be around, but I definitely think that there are a lot of topics, maybe not sounds, but topics in his music that are very Kanye influenced. I don't know if you think that's fair, but
no, totally fair. It really is like I wasn't even thinking about like Travis Scott, but like even some of the new rappers, I say new, but like Juice WRLD, Trippie Redd, why am I drawing a blank? Oh, all of them. Yeah, all of them.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the album, Scott?
My thoughts on 808s? I don't have too many thoughts that you guys didn't cover. As you do, I adored the first half. I think that Welcome to Heartbreak really does just sell
Heartbreak.
Yeah. The thing with Kanye that's a little weird, at least for me, is it's about a lot of his stuff is just about being sad and emotional, about being famous.
Sure.
And it's weird because it's something that I, and I'm sure many other people, always fantasize about. It's like, I want to be rich and famous, and then Welcome to Heartbreak, I think, does a very good job of showing that it's not all that.
Sure.
And showing that he's missing a lot of the personal connections that he wished that he had.
Yeah. I think going back to Jeff's point about Say You Will as a contrast from the most recent Kanye era with Graduation, I think Welcome to Heartbreak really pushes that narrative forward, where you see not only the sort of sad state that he's in, but the longing for normalcy after really indulging in this rock star lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that some of the things he doesn't say on the album, like speak volumes, he doesn't like curse on the album at all, which...
Oh yeah, you're right. I always forget about that.
Coming off of like Graduation is like, I don't know, you kind of notice it. Yeah. You're like, this is Kanye.
Yeah, it's like a clean album, and that probably led to some of the influence in that it got the radio play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easier. Heartless was everywhere.
Sure.
I remember,
everywhere.
I remember watching AM TV, right, where they just showed like music videos at like 6 a.m.
Yeah, before school.
Before school, and like every morning for like 6 months straight was just like Heartless and like Love Lockdown, and I was like, just in middle school, I was like, these are great songs, like I like them a lot, but it wasn't until a few years later that I really gave the album like the listen it deserved, and it was at a time where I think it was warranted, right? Like I think that this is an easy to listen to album when you are sad or like going through like relationship struggles. So
definitely,
it's in the title.
yeah. Basically, it's in the title.
I think this is one of his that aged the best from the 2000s decade.
I think so too. Yeah. I think that you see that largely in that it defined what music would evolve into, so it doesn't feel like it was left behind.
But it's not like, I find that a lot of influential albums don't necessarily age the best because we see so many albums do it so much better.
Sure.
But this, while I have seen albums do it a little better, I don't necessarily think it's that blown out of the water.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
That makes it a little better.
Do you guys want to move on to our next one? We'll probably piss some people off here. Probably our hottest take in the ranking, I think.
This is our hottest take?
This is probably our hottest take, I would say. The College Dropout. I think most people put this in their top 3. I think that we're rocking a boat a little bit here.
Yeah,
but
it's not even like, we have it 4 or 5. Like I've got it 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it 6.
I mean,
you messed up my initial mark. You gave me an A.
Oh yeah, shit! I did give you an A. Yeah.
This album is so inconsistent.
It's so inconsistent.
So inconsistent.
Yeah.
I love All Falls Down. I love Spaceship Jesus Walks. Never Let Me Down, but then it's like, oh god, so long. I like slow jams, but then it's like, we get to like Through the Wire, Family Business, Last Call, and it picks up again. But it's like that middle stretches.
Yeah,
it is hard to make a very good 21-song album.
It is, especially a 21-song album that's not really pushing a narrative. It has a concept in essence, but it's not a story.
Yeah,
right?
I think that
You're on like The Wall, which is such a long album. That would be the standard you'd look at. 27 songs, I believe. But it follows this story. It sort of keeps things locked in, and it gives you a little bit of reprieve for those inconsistencies, where at least they're adding to a greater whole.
It's also not really a 21-song album because there's so many skits, and
they're all awful.
No, I actually like some of them.
Oh,
I think
no.
some of the skits.
No.
Some of the skits.
No,
are great.
I hate the skits on this album.
He moved his skits when he moved to Late Registration, but I still like some of the skits. But either way,
I'm glad that skits are a trend that has died.
So
yeah.
But either way, it's not really 21 songs. It's you cut out the skits and you're missing 1, 2, 3, 4.
Fair.
5.
Good point.
You drop out 5 songs from that.
Cogent argument.
Yeah.
The thing that I really like about College Dropout, right? Like I have it 7th. I don't dislike it. I like it a lot. I think people always talk about Graduation as being Kanye's like album, saying like I made it, like I'm on top of the world. Like even he will go on record as saying that. But I feel like College Dropout is more about that, right? Like
it's more his introduction to fame. I feel like it's like him saying hello to it.
I'm not sure if I agree with that because I think he makes some really like high claims about himself, which he would later fulfill.
I think that's something that's inherent to rap, though. Like you hear people, even SoundCloud rappers, they have this braggadocio persona that is just part of the genre.
See, it's actually interesting how this shifted the like attitudes about the genre and like bringing us out of that bling era.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. I think that is the sort of influence point with College Dropout, and I don't want to say it inflates the opinion of the album because I think it doesn't to as much of a degree as a lot of other influential albums. But because it's his first album, because it's his introduction to Kanye, and because it did sort of usher in this transition away from gangster rap, sort of a lot of toxic masculinity in the genre, where Kanye is more vulnerable, more self-aware. I think that those are important shifts, but I don't know how much I think that they affect the actual album's quality.
I mean, what I do think is in the album and related to that is the album just has this like boyish charm to it, if you will.
It does.
It has this charm where, while Late Registration is a similar album, and clearly we haven't gotten to it yet, so we rated it a little higher, it kind of lacks that. It doesn't have as much of that charm to it.
It doesn't. I think that we'll talk about that when we get there, but
yeah.
I do think it makes up for that in other ways.
Very fair.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna...
Okay. Some of my other issues with the album are, for me, the standout tracks on the album are We Don't Care, All Falls Down, Spaceship, and Last Call.
I'm sorry to cut you off. This is the first time I've heard you say that, and I agree 100%, which I think is
really
funny. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, probably most people, think of the standout tracks from this album as being Jesus Walks and Through the Wire. And I think that those are really good songs. I think that they're definitely in the upper half of the album. But to me, they are getting their legacy from things other than just being good songs. I think that the fact that Kanye rapped a song after a car crash through a wire in his mouth doesn't make the song better. It's a cool story, but it doesn't make the song any better.
Fair.
And I think that people do sort of overvalue that when they talk about this song in context of Kanye's catalog. And a similar thing with Jesus Walks, where it's one of these first very religion-praising songs in the modern rap era. And I hear people say it welcomed Jesus back into the rap household. I don't know how much I value that, or how much that matters to me.
I hear you. I think that's something that like we just don't really understand either, is the fact that we were 8?
Yeah, we were a little younger at the time, so that's definitely important.
So I think that like with Through the Wire being his first song and doing it in the condition that he was in, I think is massively impressive. I'm trying
I
to
agree.
think of,
It's very impressive.
I think it was his first single. I could be wrong. I should know this. As Kanye
I think you're right.
But we talk about rap being in the bling era, right? Like I think of like 50. I think of The Game. Like,
sure.
I think that hearing that and being like, who the fuck is this? And then it being such a massively successful song, and then people are like, yeah, he did it while his jaw was wired shut, like all this, and
yeah, it may have propped him up a little bit, got people to check him out,
right? And
sure.
I think that that's something that like older heads will
value
could attest
more.
to.
Yeah. I think that that's fair, and I guess it's just a difference of perspective. If people value stuff like that, the story around a song, adding to its overall greatness, it's just not my perspective with music, I guess. I'm really just focused on looking at the music itself, what's in the music, rather than what's around the music. But I can understand the opposite perspective, too.
Very fair. I know you disagree with me here, but I might add Family Business to the standout tracks. I think that is the peak of the boyish charm of the album.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that.
And it's one of the things that, if I want to listen to this album, that's sort of
what you're going for. Yeah.
So I enjoy Family Business quite a bit.
I think it's a good song. It's in the upper half of the album for me. I like it. I just don't like it as much as others.
I also love Jay's verse on Never Let Me Down.
Sure.
Yeah. And again, like, just saying, like, just the state that rap was in, everything was kind of stagnant, and then, Kanye in a pink polo and a Louis backpack, like, just comes out with this album, and it just shook things up, in a way that I feel only Kanye can.
Sure, yeah.
Very fair.
I think that's a good end point for that album.
Yeah, and speaking of shaking things up, the way the only way Kanye can.
No, I don't think this is going to be a hot take at all. I think if anything,
I
think if anything, people are going to say it's too low.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of love for Yeezus lately.
I fucking love.
See, I have it higher than you guys. So
I was surprised by that.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that
I was
too.
planning on coming into this podcast today and telling you guys that I had this album over College Dropout, and both of you to look at me like I was nuts.
No.
I think this album has so much more identity. I honestly think it's more consistent, even though I think this album's really inconsistent. The production's so much better.
The production is so much better.
That
is what it is.
Is a top-tier Kanye song.
I think it's better conceptually. I would argue Blood on the Leaves is a top-tier Kanye song, too. It's one of his best produced albums, for sure.
Yeah,
one of the better produced albums of the 2010s.
He brought in Daft Punk and Gesaffelstein for, like, on-site Send It Up. Like, I said, like, Stronger was one of my favorite songs because Daft Punk, but when I, like, saw the track list and the producers for this album, I was just so fucking excited. And, I talk about, like, the first track, the opening track, just being, like, kind of ushering in that new era. Like, this is what the entire album is going to sound like. And I
no
think
one was ready for On-Site.
On-Site is the song that does it best, in my opinion. I think you hear... I remember sitting in front of my stereo after taking finals in my sophomore year of high school and hearing this, and the biggest grin on my face when I heard that. I was just like, let's fucking
go. Because you knew what you were in for immediately.
Yeah,
which is cool.
I think this came out right after Watch the Throne, which I think kind of paid homage to the backpack or the bling era of rap.
Yeah,
but in a more progressive way, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that the more industrial production on here, especially compared to Watch the Throne as his most recent predecessor, was such a step up. Such a step in the right direction. I think that the opulence of this album really fits Kanye well. I think that it's very maximal, it's very in your face, it's exciting, it's hype, and it's still sort of deep in a sense, where you see this monster that Kanye is feeling himself turn into, where he's losing his identity and devolving back into this Yeezus character when he was trying to take a step forward in his last, more conceptual album, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
You're right.
See, I actually find that really interesting, because I find Dark Fantasy, Yeezus, and Pablo to be almost this trilogy of, like, one story.
It kind of is.
This is in a weird spot, and I have it rated the lowest out of those, but because it's in this weird spot where it's kind of treading old ground. Because we kind of covered
You kind of did cover the relapse on the end of Dark Fantasy.
We kind of covered it on Hell of a Life.
Yeah.
We kind of cover it in the beginning of Pablo.
Sure.
So looking back, it's in this weird spot, but I definitely think that... Why are you looking at me?
So
not the very beginning.
No, so I think there's a line in the album, right? Like, as soon as they like you, make them unlike you, right? And I think that when NBDTF came out, we'll talk about it later, it was instantly critically acclaimed. It
Instantly,
was full of hits.
Yeah,
everybody loved
course.
the album.
Yep.
Everybody loved the album.
Everybody
loved Watch the Throne too, right?
Sure.
So with Kanye covering the relapse and like taking like a deeper dive into it, this was not a critically acclaimed album. This was not an album that was like super well received. You know, there was...
I think Rolling Stone actually gave it 5 stars.
They did.
I think so, yeah. It's fucking weird.
Fuck Rolling
Just
Stone.
like an old
They gave
boomer.
late registration and Yeezus 5 out of 5.
Yeah, just like...
Oh my god, you know what? I remember your dad having...
Yeah. My dad bought this album before I was even into Kanye because Rolling Stone gave it 5 stars.
That's
Still
so
won't listen to
fucking
Velvet Butterfly, though.
He still won't listen to Velvet Butterfly.
Listen to it.
Yeah, 5 stars is good enough for him, but top 2 or 3 of the decade isn't. So
Yeah,
whatever.
I think that one of the most impressive things on this album is just the group of people that he was able to bring in to work on it.
And you can hear that in the sound. You can hear that this is the product of a lot of talented minds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, you know, a lot of like French like house music again with Daft Punk, with Cassette. There were a few others that escape me at the moment, like just like French dance music producers who helped him on this album, and you know, I think one of the songs that I love, oh my goodness, Guilt Trip, sorry, you know, featuring Cudi, I think encapsulates the song really well, like some of the bars. I think Cudi's
I think sort of that like emotional refrain there.
Yeah. And given the, you know, the story just behind that song too, I think it is a really, really good, you know, analogy for the album. I guess I would say that like it's pretty public that Kanye and Cudi were not on good terms. Cudi didn't know that Kanye was using those lyrics in a song. So again, like the soon as they like you, make them unlike you. I think he took that, you know, in the eye of the public, but maybe also like the music industry. Or those in his closer circle, because he worked with different producers on this album, like people who aren't really in
standard
the rap
game. Producers.
I will say that Yeezus era Kanye is my favorite Kanye.
That's fair. Yeah, he's definitely the most fun. But I think
some great interviews.
This is the last of single Kanye, you know, like right after this album dropped.
We got married Kanye.
Yeah, we got dad Kanye.
I think that the album has some really good standouts that I'm just seeing looking at the track list right now. Black Skinhead, just in its totality, especially the production, or not to skip on site, as Jeff's saying, it is a very great welcome to the album. Not the hugest fan of I Am a God, but New Slaves, especially the outro.
The outro's probably the best.
It's probably the best moment of time.
Yeah.
So good.
Also, I'm pretty sure Kanye publicly said that the last verse on New Slaves is the best verse ever written, which that's just funny.
Yeezus era Kanye.
But hey,
just so
Hold My Liquor, top tier Kanye song.
Absolutely.
That's such a weird mix of people to be on a song, but it's great.
It works so well.
I'm in it. I want to get back to that in a second.
One of my favorite bars. Thank you, Kanye.
Blood on the Leaves, another top tier Kanye song. Guilt Trip, and Bound 2.
Bound 2, man.
Yeah, Bound 2 really kind of, it just goes so well into Pablo. But yeah, and clearly we have a lot of great things to say about the album. For me, I don't know about you guys, the reason that this isn't higher in my ranking is mostly just the lyricism. I think that some of it is intentional, but a lot of it is just pretty bad. It's a little too on the nose in terms of that Yeezus character, and some of the bars are just a little cringy, and it takes me out of the experience. Absolutely. That's the only thing for me, is just the lyricism will sometimes take me out of the experience, and on some of the songs I feel like the production can be, while great, a little bombastic, but other than that, album's pretty damn good.
Yep.
So
that's about how
really
I feel.
fucking good.
Yeah. So
moving on.
Move on. Yep. Let's do it.
Late registration.
This is the first time that my list has not been the group list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think this album is as good as Yeezus, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have this album rated the highest. I love this album. I think this is the establishment of Kanye's identity. I think that it does lose some of the boyish charm that Scott's talking about with College Dropout, but I love the sense of maturity, not only in what Kanye is talking about, but in the production. The production value on this album is incredible. It's really the peak of that middle 2000s aesthetic, featuring a lot of other genre incorporation. It sounds so good. You get heard him say,
"It's what is good."
It sounds good, therefore is good. Nothing else matters, bro. Heard him say, "Touch the Sky," "Roses," "Bring Me Down," "Diamonds," "We Major," and "Hey Mama" are really the songs I would point to as the ones that are defining this aesthetic that I'm trying to bring up here. I just love it. I think that the collective sound of the album, how cohesive the production styles are, how well they blend together and give you such a good album experience, works really well. I think that the skits are much less distracting.
The skits on this one are hysterical.
Yeah, the skits on this one, they're probably... Bro. We ain't got it. Yeah, yeah, we're getting made fun of so much for that. But that's going to be a meme. But, yeah, probably the best skits, honestly, that I can think of on an album.
Just in any album?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like skits, so it's not really that high of a bar, but...
Here's my standhood coming out. Do we count the Good Kid, Mad City skits as skits?
Hey. But, yeah, I mean, I think that he's really in touch with himself. I think he's really in touch with his emotions as well as a rapper. I think that Hey Mama and Roses are Kanye at his best in terms of writing and showing his vulnerability, emotions, and value and connections.
I actually think that Hey Mama has that boyish charm that I was talking about.
Yeah,
Yes,
it really does.
And
Seeing him sing that to his mom is fucking tear-jerking.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking,
Yep.
Especially with what happened to her.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then just in terms of rap, seeing Kanye just go off on Gone, on Diamonds, on We Major is great to see. I think that he showed us all of the best of his multifaceted persona as an artist on this album, and I adore this album. I have it 3, and I'm only not putting it higher because the top 2 are just so damn good.
What a sample on Diamonds. I love that song, and they used it so well on this song.
Yeah. I'd also want to point out that I have this at 3, which is only looks a little bit different from you guys, but I think that this is better than what I have 4, by a similar margin is what I have 4 over 7 or 8. I think that there is a major drop. For me, there is a major drop off after this album in the Kanye discography. Clearly, I'm the only one here, but those are my feelings. I just wanted to express them. So after I've sufficiently jerked this album off, what do you guys think of Late Registration?
Yeah, I've got Late Registration 4. I really love this album, but I find that of Kanye's albums, maybe just apart from Jesus King, it's probably one of the albums I have the least to say about. I think that Kanye kind of delivered everything really, really well, and put things in a way that, I don't know, that other rappers just couldn't at the time. I think he saw the faults in College Dropout and was like, let me fix this. Let me do a part 2.
It's more polished.
I think... highlights, heard him say Diamonds is really fucking good. Roses,
it's so good.
Roses is really fucking good. Hey Mama is...
We're all going to mention Diamonds sample 9 times.
Yeah, the Diamonds
9 times. It's fantastic.
So goddamn good.
We'll talk more about Kanye sampling a little bit later in the episode too. But I mean, this album just... I think it really is the best album out of mid 2000s rap.
Sure.
I can't really think of...
Honestly, yeah.
I
mean, I guess I would probably take Mad Villainy over it, but that's just... It's so different.
It's such an oof, Mark.
Fuck you, Scott. I don't want to hear your ridiculous Mad Villainy.
This has so much more emotional depth.
Yeah, I don't fucking...
This has emotional depth.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
Doom raps about nonsense.
But he raps about nonsense really fucking well.
The issue... I guess the one issue with Late Registration is he doesn't rap about Doritos, Cheetos, or Fritos.
Yeah, he doesn't do that, so that's why it's not higher.
He only raps about his family issues and stuff. It's not issues,
but not as well.
His family.
Yeah, okay.
I think that what's his? Oh my
Matt
god!
Villainy.
Yes, Matt Villainy. Jesus, I can't say it. Doom raps more well about Doritos, Cheetos, and Fritos. Weller.
Weller.
Doritos, Cheetos, and Fritos than Kanye does about his family. So.
Yeah, but I'd rather listen to someone rap about their family.
Yeah, but
Scott, I think you're undervaluing.
That's just your perspective, man.
Really quick, rank Doritos, Cheetos, and Fritos.
That order. Wait, no, Fritos over Cheetos.
Are we talking?
No, I that order. Doritos. We all agree on Doritos number one.
Doritos number one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I take Cheetos. The problem with Cheetos though is I'm just gonna buy like Jack's or something. I'm not gonna buy fucking Cheetos.
Well, no. If we're talking about Cheetos, crunchy Cheetos are so much better than puff Cheetos.
Yeah, I agree.
So if we're talking about crunchy Cheetos, then it's Cheetos 2. If we're talking about puff Cheetos, then it's Cheetos 3.
Yeah.
Anyway,
if you hand me a bag of Fritos, I'm throwing them out though. So
anyway, one thing that I just noticed here is. I'm surprised I didn't know this before. And I've heard this album a million times.
Yeah.
But we were like, it's so hard for the College Dropout to maintain 21 tracks and still be good.
Yeah.
This is 21 tracks.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was 21 tracks.
It
manages to fill out that space and do it effectively.
Super valid.
So, is that everything we have on
Album's
Late Registration?
great. Yeah. I think I gave you guys a little essay at the beginning, and now we kind of covered everything.
Yeah.
Kids see good.
Oh my god, I fucking love this. This might be the album like I love the most. I'm like hand gesturing.
I wish they could see your
Oh my god, everything about this album. For me, it's the best way to spend 20 minutes ever.
Sure.
The amount of times I've been like, my commute to work is 20 minutes. The amount of times I've just been like, all right, feel the love, let's do it. Like, why the fuck
not?
not?
Grabber, since you were talking about that.
Yes,
that pulls you in.
So we're really getting made fun of.
Oh my goodness, I think with the Surgical Summer, right? Like this is a time that I remember very well. Like, with everything that was going on.
This was a defining moment of that.
In life, just where we were. I feel the love, fire for the track list. This is so fucking good.
Yeah. It's consistent. I'm not the biggest fan of Free or the title track. I think I've come around to the title track a little bit.
The title track's really good.
At one point, I was just saying it's the worst song ever, and I fucking hate it, but it's pretty decent.
I think Free is definitely the worst, but it's weird because it's that halfway point. It's almost like an intermission.
It is almost like an intermission. You're right.
Let's take a quick break.
It's like we had 3 really good songs. Here's some gibberish for you before we do 3 more good songs.
Actually, I do think it does have some value in that it's kind of like, less so, but it's kind of like I Thought About Killing You, where it is a little more raw, a little more messy, and it's really in your face with it.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think part of the reason why I love this album so much too is, this is a Kanye discog ranking, but seeing Kid Cudi kind of come back from I wouldn't call it like a fall of grace, but it wasn't the Kid Cudi that was Man on the Moon Volume 1 and 2.
Yeah, he wasn't being as appreciated.
Right, and the lyricism on this album is
great.
Is so fun.
Yeah.
I think you could make an argument that some of the best from both appears on this album.
I think Kanye's verse on Cudi Montage is one of his best lyrically.
Yeah,
in terms
absolutely.
of technical rapping and in terms of subject matter.
I think that
it's so tight too. It's a very crisp, tight, short verse that packs a punch.
And that basically defines the album right there.
Yeah, pretty much.
It defines the album. It reminds me of Kanye's second verse on Runaway. We'll talk about that later. But I love both Kanye and Cudi's verse on Fourth Dimension. Fourth Dimension to me is one of the most fun songs on the album. I think that it's one of the best produced songs on the album. I have it like second in terms of production.
Sure.
See, it's really weird because that sample's so weird, but it works
so weird.
well.
It is.
It works so well.
Speaking of sampling, like I can't think of any other rapper who could sample Kurt Cobain and make a 10 out of 10 song.
Sure.
Scott
was a little yikes face there. But, yeah.
No,
we already talked about it.
It's the best song on the album. Absolutely.
It's the best song.
I love the song. I was just making a little meme face about you calling it 10 out of 10.
It's a masterpiece.
Yeah. I'd say it's good.
Whoa, Scott, I don't like that. Reborn too. I think that people can kind of complain that it drags on at the end. I think that is the point.
Yeah, it's definitely the point. It's still a complaint that I would give, but it is the point. You're right.
I wouldn't give that complaint. I think it works very well.
I don't feel right giving any complaints about this album because of how well it does everything it's trying to do in 20 minutes. I feel bad for giving the feedback.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that
I can't speak ill.
Yeah, to me, this album, it takes that theme, that journey that Kanye's looking to do with Ye, and a week later it gives us a much more fleshed out and detailed look at not only his perspective, but you lump in Cudi, and you get them playing off each other so well that the album feels like it's really one of those late night conversations about your deepest feelings with one of your best friends, and it's really heartfelt, and it strikes the right chord, and it resonates all the way through, especially coming to its climactic endpoints in Reborn and Cudi Montage, where you can really feel for Kanye and Cudi and the journey and the growth that they've gone through. And I love the album. I think it's really great. I guess I don't like it as much as you guys, but I still think it's a really damn good album. And that's how I would explain it.
Yeah,
very fair.
I think that, we talk about them like playing off each other very well, and I think that it was the best they played off each other since Erase Me.
And even Erase Me was more of a hit than it was that discussion type of thing.
Yeah, I think that they just know how to play like verbal tennis with one another, and just I just could only imagine
tennis with the heart, man.
Right. I could only imagine just sitting in on like their discussions about the artistic direction of this album and just being absolutely mind blown.
I bet.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Especially if you talk about the music behind what they're talking about and how well it resonates with the feelings that they're trying to garner with the audience here. I think they did a really damn good job with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very fair.
Yeah, and that's all I have to say about Kids See Ghosts. I think that this is a fair placement. I don't think anyone's going to complain about this one. So,
just so all the listeners know, I do have a Kanye-related tattoo. It is from My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. The next tattoo I get will also be a Kanye-related tattoo. It will be a take on the album cover for Kids See Ghosts.
And no, you can't see it. It's for the ladies only.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, whoa.
Yep.
Okay, should we move on?
Moving on to The Life of Pablo, the best Kanye album. Absolutely.
Scott.
The best Kanye album.
I don't hate that take at all.
I just want to say, we're at the halfway point for the episode now.
Yeah,
We've just
much.
reached the halfway episode.
Now we have the two that we have a lot to say about.
So much to say about. I will say, and I think, Mark, you will agree on this too, The Life of Pablo is probably my most listened to album of all time.
Yeah, it's very up there for me too. I think I might have passed it with some rap songs, but it is one of those two. Even if we just talk about time, let alone I was factoring in the short runtime, but just in terms of albums I spent the most time listening to, it's up there. It's one of those two probably for me. I've spent so much time listening to this. It is just... I was thinking about doing a list of the top 10 most enjoyable albums of all time, and I was going to put this number 1, and I think that's fair. I think that this album, especially sonically, is just so accessible and so strong all the way through. It resonates with pretty much any audience. It has a little bit of something for everybody, and it nails everything that it's trying to do. It's a very versatile album. And the story that it tells is something that a lot of people can relate to. And probably Kanye's best narratively, I would argue.
See, I like that you described it as versatile, because with his other longer albums, like The College Dropout, I brought up like inconsistency, and it's like, I just want to skip a lot of these tracks, and this album I suppose is inconsistent, but I never feel the need to skip any of these tracks. I feel every track adds to the album in some way.
Yeah.
And, like, sure, maybe feedback through I Miss the Old Kanye isn't the best stretch on the album, but it's still an enjoyable stretch. It still adds to the album. It does sort of cover similar themes as Yeezus and giving him that sort of persona that's going to be picked apart later in the album.
Yep.
But I think that that's a necessary part of the album, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, introductory Kanye songs that grab you, Ultralight Beam.
Yeah, that was a stylistic shift.
Oh
Shit.
my!
Oh yeah!
Oh my fucking god! I mean, this
very different from Yeezus, that's for sure.
100%.
As much from Bound 2.
Yeah, which he was definitely aware of.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think Ultralight Beam, like Chance the Rapper's verse on Ultralight Beam, it might be one of the best verses on the album.
I would say so.
I think that
I think his charisma and his delivery really stick out.
Yeah, it's sad that he couldn't maintain that with later projects, but
I don't think so. Yeah.
I think in terms of like an intro song that really grabs you, I think Ultralight Beam is one of Kanye's best to do it.
Yeah.
I think that immediately switching it up with Father Stretch My Hands Part 1 into Part 2 is.
And I think those set the tone of the album's aesthetic so well. I love Father Stretch My Hands, especially Part 1.
Part 1 is...
It's so soulful. It's so wearing its heart on its sleeve. It's just great.
It's so wearing its bleach on its t-shirt.
Yeah, yo.
This song makes me happy though, because I just remember watching. I remember watching the Madison Square Garden, album listening party, the fashion show.
Yeah,
great Kanye era, but like seeing Cudi and Kanye with their arms around each other when the beat drops on Father Stretch My Hands is something that it was my Twitter header for years. It was my background for years. It just reminds me of a really fun time, and being so happy that they were like talking again. I touched up on the fact that like during the Yeezus era, Kanye and Cudi weren't like really on speaking terms, and just seeing that was
sad.
Yeah.
See, this might be a hot take. I prefer Father Stretch My Hands Part 2. And it is entirely...
I would never guess that from you.
It is entirely carried by Kanye's verse in the beginning. I don't really care for the Panda all that much, but that verse is fantastic. I love it.
Interesting. Okay.
This is the first time I'm hearing this.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that I preferred that?
No, I didn't know that, yeah.
I think that verse is one of his best, to be honest.
All right.
I will...
It's so hard-hitting. His delivery is fantastic, and I think what he's talking about is great, too.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I can't really complain with that take.
The outro of Famous is probably the best moment in music. I know he said it was New Slaves, but it might be Famous.
Fair. Yeah, I think that to go back to what we've been doing with going over some highlights, I think we definitely have to say Ultralight Beam as
Mark,
its grabbing point. The Father Stretch My Hands set. Maybe not famous so much as a song, but for the moment it had with Taylor Swift, which was pretty funny.
Fuck Taylor Swift.
But let's acknowledge that we can, for some highlights, after that we go Waves, FML, Real Friends, Wolves, French Track.
Yeah, that's
a
fucking run.
That's a run.
Waves might be the most, like, I don't know how to phrase this, I guess, beautiful, just...
transcendental.
Yeah. Production that you can hear on an album.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine playing that song for anybody and having them not think that it is just great sounding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kid Cudi's hums. Oh my fucking god.
Those are peak Cudi hums.
Yeah, and something we're not talking about with The Life of Pablo, guys, is when Kanye put it out, that's not the version that we listened to today. This was like a living,
evolving,
breathing, like aesthetic that Kanye was creating and molding as time went. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a Fix Wolves. Like there is just so much that's different in terms of just like how he mixed the music. He added verses. He Frank's track was originally on what's it called, Wolves, and then he replaced Frank's verse with Sia's verse and gave Frank his own track.
I heard of Frank's verse.
Originally, I remember. I have the internal debate all the time of like, which Wolves do I like more, the Frank version or the Sia version? And I think, as much as I want to say the Frank version, because I'm also a Frank Ocean stan, I think that in the context of the album, what Kanye did with giving Frank's track, I think it adds to the album. I think he did the right thing by giving Sia the verse on the song.
I didn't think that was the direction you were going to go there. I was going to hop in and add that because, yeah, I really agree. I think that isolating Frank's track, especially for the meaning it has, it really is sort of the ultimate conclusion of Kanye's journey in my eyes. That the final line of "Life is precious, we found out," is sort of what he gets to. And the album summarizes what this, or the song summarizes what this album's about, what a lot of Kanye's growth as a man has been about.
Yeah, and I think that, I'm glad you brought that up, because this is the best narratively of any of his albums, and, I mean, I suppose I'll talk about it next slide.
Yeah.
But I have some complaints with one of his other really highly acclaimed albums where it really screws up.
The one we haven't talked about, which
haven't
may or may not be number one.
Yeah. I really have a problem where it messes up the ending, doesn't really bring him to a satisfying conclusion, whereas this absolutely does. I think we're talking about the kind of man Kanye is when we were talking about Ye, and I think this is him getting to that point, and I love seeing it. It's something that we haven't seen. It's something unique. It's something fantastic, and I absolutely love it.
Sure.
I'm trying to think
Top
of
5
like
album of 2016.
I'm trying to think of like the Kanye album that sounds the least like the one that came before it and the one that came after it. This is kind of sidetracking the entire conversation.
Sure.
This could be it.
This could be it.
That's what I'm kind of thinking.
And
not just...
That was what else? The other one I was thinking of. But
Oh, it's 808s. Never mind.
no, 808 sounds fairly similar to Dark
What's
Fantasy.
wrong?
I know we're including it in the discussion, but I don't really know if I consider it like a Kanye album, which is kind of hypocritical because I just spent so much time jerking off Kids See Ghosts, but like...
Yeah.
I don't know. I like to pick and choose my Kanye arguments.
You want your circular backwards logic.
Yeah.
That's all right.
This is also an album that... talking about the life of Pablo, this is also an album that I feel, starting with the album we'll talk about next, really kind of fell into my lap and fit the narrative or fit what I felt I was going through in life when this album dropped, right? So this is like a very personal album, and honestly, like to me, like every Kanye album is a very personal album because Kids See Ghosts did a really good job of summarizing how I felt in summer 2018, and The Life of Pablo did a really good job of summarizing how I felt, what was it, winter?
No, it was February?
Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
It was Valentine's Day when it dropped, 2016, you know?
Yeah.
So, I know it's not on purpose. I like to think it is, but like Kanye just dropping albums
He knows you.
Kanye knows.
It's just for you.
Kanye
Jeff.
loves you.
The albums are good because you personally resonate with them for your experience. It has nothing to do with the album.
Yeah.
He loves you. He's looking out for you.
Absolutely. I think that
He's your guy.
I think that this album is a hot take. This is my hot take. I think that this album has the best Kanye banger, like the best like Kanye like party song with Fade.
Interesting.
I think
I mean, the music video for it, I mean, I'd be down for that in the party.
Listen.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not counting singles. Like I remember hearing "I Love It" all the time at like parties, and you could make
That was
the
for the
argument
memes.
It was for the
It
memes.
was for the memes.
I think you could make the argument that like Gold Digger, but recency bias. I think that Fade sounds
You weren't partying
better.
too much when Gold Digger came out.
Yeah,
you were,
my elementary
you were
school
9.
field
Yeah,
trips.
yeah. I don't think you were partying too much.
Those 9th birthday parties got really lit to Gold Digger.
Yeah.
The censored version. I remember hearing the uncensored version of that song for the first time and being like, oh.
I heard the uncensored version of the song for the first time when I was like 17. And
Yeah,
I was like, oh shit, that's what he's saying.
Yeah, that's way better.
Yeah.
No, but I think Fade is the
Interesting.
best.
Interesting take. I
best
can't hate
Kanye
on that.
banger.
But to move on from Fade, I think that St. Pablo is probably the best song on the album. I think that Sampha's contribution to it is just otherworldly. His voice is so goddamn beautiful on that track. And just Kanye going through very specifically in a detailed and well-executed fashion just where he's at mentally on St. Pablo. I love. The track is amazing. The production is one of, if not my favorite, from the album and from him overall. I think it is a top 5 at minimum Kanye song.
Absolutely.
I adore it.
I always get a little emotional at the callback to "We Don't Care" on this album.
Oh yeah,
Always.
yeah, that's fair.
Yep. I think, speaking of the living, breathing, like this was a very unfinished project when Kanye rolled it out. This St. Pablo wasn't added until months after the album initially dropped.
Sure.
I remember checking, I use Apple Music, but like I remember opening up Apple Music and seeing like this new song in the album and being like, what the fuck? And listening to it and being like, holy shit, I didn't know that this album could have gotten better.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah.
I think that we need to talk about No More Parties in LA.
I feel sad talking about No More Parties in LA because I'm such a Kendrick stan, but he is blown out of the water by Kanye on the song.
And I hear people really disagree with that all the time. And
I think that
coming from you and your massive love for Kendrick and also mine, I don't know. I think that Kendrick was really crushed here.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I think I would say Kanye's last verse, but it's like the second half of the song, and he just goes off and off and off, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And he just keeps going, and it's so good. It's so much better than Kendrick's verse.
The song holds a weird place for me because I think that it is a very good song. It is a top 5 song on the album. It is one of the best Kanye songs and a great rap song. But I still feel this sense of disappointment in it, in that I've been frequently asked on Instagram and heard other people be asked, what's your dream lineup for a rap song? And I think that the lineup for this song is a very good answer. Kanye and Madlib producing together while Kendrick and Kanye give their verses. I think that is a phenomenal answer, and I guess they really did hit the mark here, but I don't know. I guess just looking at the personnel on that album, I would expect it to be like an all-time great rap song, which I don't really think it is.
Can we add the feature from the previous track in with that ideal listing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that would spice up the answer a little bit.
Just says 30 hours.
30 hours is
I like 30
great
hours
song.
a lot, yeah.
Real Friends.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I think that we could talk about this album forever, and I think we're going to if we don't. If we don't cut it at some point. And I'm ready to move on to our number 1 pick. If you guys are, any last minute things to say?
Jeff
here?
starts talking, and you're like, "Yeah, we need to move on."
Yeah.
No, I know.
Yeah. The other thing I would just want to say is Tyler, the Creator's remix of Freestyle is pretty fucking dope.
Sure. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, that's
True.
about it. Nothing to do
True.
with the album.
I don't really have anything to add there.
Yeah, it's just
valid.
really fucking good.
It is dope.
We're moving on to our...
I kind of wish Tyler was on this album. I think he would have fit the vibe very well.
He could have. Yeah, if
Especially that era of Tyler, sort of the moving into Flower Boy era.
I've thought about just torrenting or I shouldn't say that. I've thought about just
acquiring.
Yes,
acquiring
legal
means.
Legally mixing. Just What the Fuck Right Now over just replacing Freestyle with What the Fuck Right Now and thinking that would really fucking work. Like if Kanye just happened to add a verse, I think that what Tyler talks about in that is pretty fucking accurate.
Sure. Yeah.
Cash my first check, said fuck depression. I don't know. Kanye killed it on that song. Or I'm sorry, Kanye obviously killed Freestyle, but Tyler killed the remix. Absolutely. I wish he could have contributed.
I was about to cut in and correct you and say Frank, and I'm like, nope.
Never mind. Frank is on the album.
Yeah. All right.
We do need to talk about the next album.
Okay,
though.
so to wrap up the life of Pablo, we have the best Kanye album and the 5th best album of 2016. And now we're moving on to you guys' top pick.
Our top
incorrect
pick.
top pick.
You guys
Our hot take
you.
top pick that nobody else agrees with.
Oh my god. Intro tracks, Dark Fantasy?
Shit. You might think.
My dude,
This is your favorite album overall, right?
this is my favorite Kanye album
This is your favorite
overall.
piece of art, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is top 3 and my favorite piece of art. I flip flop all the time, but you could make the argument number 1 because I have it permanently
On your body.
on my body.
Sure.
I'll tell you guys what it is, and when we get to it,
What's on the...
What's on the slide right now?
Yeah.
yeah. Spoiler alert:
Yeah.
It is Kanye in smoke. Dark Fantasy. Oh man, introducing an album after the public
Fiasco.
that was Kanye's
Yeah.
life right after 808s, right? His mother passing away. The VMAs, some of the interviews he gave, and then just vanishing. He just went off the grid.
Engagement being canceled?
Yeah. The breakup, it's just nobody expected Kanye to bounce back.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the greatest comebacks.
808s was an album that we look back on very fondly. Now it wasn't too well. People were questioning Kanye's ability to, I don't know, bounce back from it. And and then given everything that happened with him publicly in his personal life, for him to come back the way he did, he is just unbelievable. I'm sure we'll talk about it. Gorgeous.
Gorgeous is probably the best rapping Kanye song. It would be between that, All Falls Down, and Gone for me.
What about Gotti Montage?
Okay, sure. If we want to consider that 20-second snippet, then
then
all right.
I think something to note too is I believe if you were to look it up, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, it's 11 tracks. It is 11 tracks, but it's like the same length as Late Registration, which is 21 tracks.
Yeah,
and
all
I think
of the songs here are pretty lengthy.
They're lengthy, but they fill the time very well. I'm never like, when is the song going to end?
No, I'm never bored listening to
I do
this
not
album.
skip a song on this album. It doesn't happen.
I think just to get back to the intro point that you're making, Dark Fantasy really grabs you not only with that sort of childlike storytelling, introductory little message from Nicki there, but the maximalism, opulence, as I said a million times, and angelic feeling with this choirful refrain on Dark Fantasy is just beautiful, and it sets the tone very well for what you're going to get into, especially in terms of the story, where you see the sort of highs and lows of fame and self-love, I would say, that are so thematically tied to this album. I think Dark Fantasy also is a really good example of Kanye's bars being on point. How many Urkels on your team? That's why your win's low is one of my favorite fucking puns
dude,
ever.
It's so fucking dumb. But
he capitalizes on everything he's good at here. The production is peak. His rapping is peak. The emotional resonance that he has is peak. His narrative skills, I don't think they're quite as good as The Life of Pablo, but that's really the only time that he edges it out for me.
Yeah, we talk about like the maximalism and just like how every second of every song was meticulously planned and crafted. There are claims in interviews of people that worked on the album that Power took 5,000 man-hours.
Yeah,
which
and you can hear it.
Yeah.
Like, speaking of sampling, he sampled fucking King Crimson.
Yeah.
Why? How?
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
He samples Aphex Twin on this song, on this album. Like, there's this is the album that I think just proves that he's the best sampler of all time.
I might fight you a little on that one, but that's fine.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
All of the Lights, I think, is the most maximalist song. I think it's the most overproduced song, but it
is overproduced. You're right.
Yeah, it is a little.
It's not bad. No.
It's a little overproduced.
I don't mean that.
It's so good.
Overproduced.
It just reminds me of like an over-engineered like car. There's this. If they could fit something into it, they did it. If they could fit,
they basically had all of the attendees at the Grammys are featured on that song too. So,
so something about this album that I really like too is for listeners who may not know, is
Elton John on it.
Elton John is on it.
Yeah.
He does the piano. For the interlude too. But it is
interlude is gorgeous.
The better
so
song called All of the
fucking
Lights.
good. Wow. Whoa. Is like Kanye like flew everybody on this album out, right? Like producers, features, everybody, right? And he made them follow like a schedule to the minute for the day. He made them wear like suits only in the production studio. He had rules printed out in the studio and said no Twitter, right? Like he would literally like kick people out of the studio if they weren't wearing a black suit, like a tuxedo. I just think it's really funny. But I think that again, it's something that I don't think the album would have been the same if he let people show up in fucking t-shirts and cargo shorts.
Sure.
I don't know.
And if he didn't have so many people fly out and collaborate in that type of environment together,
I heard that this is. No, I was going to say, I heard that this was one of the most expensive albums to produce, like, ever at the time.
Very much so.
$3 million to produce this album.
Yeah.
Which, is wild.
Didn't he meet Pusha T on this album? Like, isn't this where their relationship started too? He flew out Pusha T, said, here's a couple verses to do. I know the Runaway verse, Pusha T's sort of acting in this sort of arrogant douchebag, unfaithful boyfriend type. and Pusha T had just gotten out of a really stressful relationship that he had a lot of guilt over, and Kanye asked him to do this, and he was like, not really sure I want to, but I guess I'll tough it out for you, man.
Yeah, he pushed.
Just building relationships through the album is really cool.
Rick Ross's feature on
the best Rick Ross verse.
Yes, on
Devil in the New Dress.
Devil in the New Dress. Rick Ross like recorded the verse, wrote his verse, recorded it, and Kanye heard it, and he was just like, no, like this isn't going on the album. I know you can do better. You need to do better. Try again. The deadline, I believe it was like the last song to get finished, and he said, you need to do better. And I think that, if you're Rick Ross and you hear that, I think you don't really have any other choice.
It calls you to the plate.
To do the best work of your life.
Yep, you got it. Especially that beat. You can't let that beat be anything but perfectly executed on, because that beat is fucking gorgeous.
Yeah,
and
forever I was like, this was Kanye's best produced song, and then
it's just not produced.
It's the only song on the album that he doesn't have producing credits on.
See, it would be the best song on the album up to that point on the album.
I mean, that's fair, but it does have a heavy hitter come after it. I just wanted to get back to Power real quick.
Yeah, let's jump back really fast.
Going back to sort of the Cudi relationship, what I really appreciate about Power is not only is it so excellently rapped, so vibrantly produced, but I love songs that are this banger, something that's played in parties, at clubs, that has that energy, but has this really deep running depression in it. The Power, if you read it, if you think about what he's saying, is a song about suicidal thoughts, and it just doesn't show that on the surface. And I mean, I guess it does say it very blatantly, but it's not what you think about when you think of Power. If I went up to some random kid that I went to high school with and we started talking about Kanye, and I'm like, oh yeah, Power, that song about suicide, they'd be like, wait, what do you mean? Most likely. That's happened to me several times. I've brought it up to people. I've had that experience. And I like that. I think that relates to Pursuit of Happiness from Cudi. I think that's another good example of a song that was a sort of all-time party song that is really about dark topics. And I love that Kanye is able to do that. And I think that that is emblematic of what this album is. And I think that it's a great motif, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Very fair.
So I think one of my favorite, like, Kanye like triple threats, like just 3 songs in a row that are just so fucking good. My favorite would have to be the one on this album with So Appalled at 6, Devil in the New Dress at 7, and Runaway at 8.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you there.
It's
such a run.
It's such a good run. I love,
and it's the best of a lot of different things.
It is. I with So Appalled, just Kanye kind of like facing the public's comments on his actions.
Yeah, sort of the materialism and the fakeness of the world around him.
Yeah, I think each rapper brings something that really only that rapper could have done. You mentioned what Pusha T was going through at that time.
Mm-hmm.
He dips his feet into that topic on his verse on So Appalled.
I think his verse on So Appalled is really great in the struggles he's going through with women, and I really appreciate that he brings up this idea of male fragile egos in the face of women's sexual histories. I think that that was clearly something that was on his mind at the time, and he very confidently and very assuredly says, that's not my fucking problem. And I have no reason to feel insecure about that. And I think that that's a shifting attitude that society is thankfully moving towards. And I'm glad to hear someone like Pusha T say that at the time that he did.
Yeah. I love Sci-Hi's verse. I love the story behind Sci-Hi's verse.
Yeah, the story behind it is great.
Apparently Kanye fell asleep in the studio while this song was being recorded, and Sci-Hi was only there for, I think he was only there for like a production or like a chorus or something like that, and he snuck his verse onto the song, and Kanye didn't hear it until one of the like final post-production listens.
Yep.
met this girl on Valentine's Day, fucked her in May, she found out about April, so she chose in March. Is one of my favorite fucking bars
so sick.
in rap.
Yeah.
But I don't think I think it strays away from the narrative of the song.
It does. It does have this problem of not fitting. It is my least favorite verse on the song, but it's still good.
I feel like if he could have done more with that bar and talked more about that, then
that would have fit a lot more
perfectly.
Yeah, because that's really what the song is.
That is exactly what the song is. Yeah. But I think it's a fun verse. It just feels a little out of place. It's one of my biggest gripes, and I put this in air quotes with the album, but I don't like skip this. I scream it in my car, or, whenever it comes on. It's just a little out of place.
Sure,
a little crooked. We talked about Devil in a New Dress. Are we going to talk about Runaway? Do you think?
Yeah,
no, I think we got it. For time, I don't think we can.
Yeah, all right. But, thanks for listening.
No. Can we first talk about the way that Devil in a New Dress bleeds into Runaway?
I would love to do that.
Yeah,
I would love to talk about that.
So you have this amazing guitar work on Devil in a New Dress, and you're going through a scale, and the final note of the scale is the note of the scale is the note that kicks off Runaway.
Yeah,
and that's just so genius. It doesn't add that much to the experience because most people probably aren't even aware of that, but it's just
it's one of those details that just had to be perfect for this album.
Yeah, it's representative of what this album is. This album is doing everything. It is no holds barred.
5,000 man hours on one song. There are times where like Runaway will start, right? I'll just hear the piano key and I'm like, all right, I have to listen to all of
the outro,
Devil in a New Dress. I'll listen to all of Devil in a... There are times
just
where I'm like,
into it.
I was going to listen to this 9-minute song. Why don't I make it 15 minutes?
Imagine if it was just one song.
All one song?
I don't know if I like it as much. I will say that whenever I do hear that note, I think it's some high-ass E. My mind's immediately Runaway. It is an iconic song.
Yeah.
One note. I will hear that note in other songs, and I'll be like, oh, Runaway.
But you gotta bring up...
That's the Runaway note.
Yeah, the Runaway note. Yeah.
That's the Runaway note.
But you gotta bring up him at a concert. And he walks out and he touches one key and a piano and the whole crowd goes fucking ballistic.
And they don't stop for... This was during the Yeezus era, but they don't stop for like 2 minutes. He hits the note and the crowd is like violently roaring for 2 straight minutes. We talk about like Kanye like doing like arena rap and like all of that. It's like something out of like a Queen biopic, like it's like they just don't stop, and then he does it again, and it gets louder somehow.
That video's great.
Yeah.
But Runaway is sort of his crown jewel achievement in terms of emotional depth. Yeah, it really is his magnum opus. It's the song that you think of Kanye for. It is
right.
The Kanye.
And we talked about like how. How Dark Fantasy like introduces everything so well.
Yeah.
The first song that he publicly played off this album was Runaway, and he did it at the VMAs the year after the Taylor Swift thing, and I think that's such like a perfect fuck you.
Fit. Yeah.
A perfect fuck you to the world.
Everyone. Yeah.
People heard that song, and it was a little bit different than the song that made it onto the album, just a little bit. But for him to say, like, let's have a toast to the douchebags, let's have a toast for the assholes, he's making everybody toast to him after what he had done. In a way that only he can. And, I don't think that anybody else could have really done that. Yeah. But for his first public performance, to be that song at the same place where he did the thing that made America hate him, to make them fall in love with him with one performance and it be that song, I think
poetic justice.
You couldn't write it better.
Yeah. He says, "You wrote me off, but I can do this."
Yeah. I think talking about the song, I don't know if there's a song that can really, at least for me, this may be a hot take, but like for anybody who's ever been pretty wrong in a relationship, I don't think there's a better song that kind of narrates that.
I can see that.
Than this song does. Kanye's first verse, like,
just going through his struggles with women, his inability to connect to other people and be vulnerable on the deepest level.
Yeah.
And
he sent this bitch a picture of his dick.
Yeah. You know, I'm pretty sure that was Lisa Ann.
He did it to Lisa Ann.
To Lisa Ann. Like, what did he think she was going to be impressed? She's Lisa Ann. Like, she fucks porn stars constantly. That's her job. But
Lisa Ann, sick.
Oh, so sick.
Sick. I don't have one bad thing to say about this song. Like, I literally, I don't have one. It's a 10. It's a masterpiece. We keep on talking about, like, Pusha T and how he...
This is one of his best verses, too.
Yeah, he cheated on his girlfriend at the time, and Kanye pushed him to embrace, for the song, embrace the... Yeah, and singing about, like, you can't blame them, they never seen Versace sofas. Like, he's essentially positioning this girl like, yeah, I cheated on you, I'm rich, you can either live with that, right? Like, you can live with me cheating on you, and you can afford this lifestyle because of me,
or dip,
or get out,
and
not have any of it, And I think that Kanye's last verse in the song, like the verse following immediately Pusha T's verse, does a really, really good job of tying the song together. But you and I disagree on our interpretations of the last verse.
Do we?
Yes. Okay. So, where he's saying, like, I don't know how I'm gonna manage if one day you just happen to leave. I personally view that as almost like a gaslighting or like a manipulative statement to say to a girl after you did her really wrong.
Okay.
I think that's saying, like, oh, I cheated on you, but I don't know what I'm going to do if you leave me. I think is super manipulative. I wouldn't say that this ties the album together thematically, but I think that it shows that there's still growth to be had, which we'll talk about, but I don't view it as a way to... I don't view it as him, like, trying to, like, very... sincerely apologize. I think he got caught, and I think he's like panicking, and he's just like, how can I keep this even though I really fucked up?
You can go.
I was interpreting it as if Pusha T and Kanye are not the same person, as if there are multiple characters on this song.
There are.
Yeah, and
that I agree with.
Kanye is acknowledging his wrongs, acknowledging his lack of connection, his lack of effort that he's been giving to this relationship, his lack of vulnerability, and he's acknowledging within himself that this person is important to him, and he's very genuinely and very vulnerably saying that he doesn't know what he's going to do if this person's no longer in his life. I think that it's not necessarily the emotional low on the album, but the most cathartic point on the album. I think that after this we see the long vocoder segment where he is just pushing his emotions out in a way where he doesn't think he can articulate with words, and to me that's the point of Runaway. And after this the album regresses into sort of a relapse.
See, I actually disagree with both of you on the interpretation of that line.
Interesting, okay.
I've actually never really interpreted this song to be about a relationship. I have always thought of it as his relationship to fame, and I think that's the whole album. I think that throughout the album we go through him coming to realize that this fantasy is darker than he expected and has brought out some of the worst sides in him. But I think that in Runaway, as he sort of reaches his maybe emotional low point, we see him acknowledge that he does need it. He needs that audience. He needs his relationship with the public.
Interesting.
That's how I've always interpreted that song.
Huh. I've never actually even thought of that. I think that is very fitting.
And
I can see that. Sure. I think those all make sense, though. I think all the interpretations work.
Yeah, and that's actually like very like I like that interpretation. I think that the one thing that may like the reason why I view it as a person-to-person relationship, like a very intimate relationship, is if we're talking about Devil in a New Dress and Runaway kind of being like a two-part thing. In Devil in a New Dress, he very much is singing to someone who he's in a relationship with, and kind of positioning this like the fall of their relationship, right? Like, you know.
See, I still interpret it as his relationship with the public, and it is the fall of their relationship.
Okay, I think that we're going to... If you guys really want to dig into this, we can, but I think that we're running very overtime here.
We're very much overtime.
And I wanted to just, before we wrap it up, because this is a discography ranking video, I think that we could do a whole hour video on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and if people wanted to see that, then sure, we can do that. But I would say, I guess I'd pose it to Jeff, since you're the other member who rated this as number one. What to you makes this the best Kanye album? Like, why does this stand above the rest? I guess I can lead if you want a second to think.
No, I'd rather go first because it's like one of those things like the school project. I just want to go first. That way I can't be compared to explanation.
Fair enough.
I just want to say I really love Lost in the World, but definitely got me in a Bon Iver. Such a weird combination of talent in that song. But what this album means to me... I remember, so this album came out when I was 13. It came out in 2010. We're coming up on the 10-year anniversary now. I was, just like at 13, like a very, like cocky, kind of like braggadocious kid. And hearing this album for the first time, right? What's the one bar that I'm thinking of that I absolutely can't think of at the moment?
Which song?
While
you're thinking, I just want to throw out Nicki's verse on Monster is sick.
Nicki's verse on Monster
is the best verse on Monster.
Yeah. Mark, while I'm thinking, if you want to take it away.
Sure. To me, this is the best Kanye album because it is the peak of everything that Kanye has tried to do over his time as an artist. I think that his calling card is this refined maximalist production that is very accessible, very hype, very aux chord type of music, but also done in a refined, mature, and strengthening way where it's not just building hype for hype's sake. I think that he is sort of this best combination of accessibility and quality type of artist where he has this universally loved production style because it sounds good and sounds good so easily. I think that this album does it the best. I think that there are so many songs on this album. Power, Dark Fantasy, All of the Lights, Runaway, that are sort of these all-time classics, these songs that are played for anyone in any situation, and they resonate. Everybody knows these songs, everybody likes these songs, but it's more than that. This album is the most vulnerable and emotionally cathartic story that Kanye has given us yet, not only just from the circumstances around the album, but mostly for the album itself. And I like this album because of the album, and I really think it's important to look at music for the music. I try to look at music for the music more so than how I personally relate to it. If I was looking at how I personally relate to it, I would have a very different best albums list. But I think Kanye's journey here, the way that he responds to fame, to struggles with connection, are very beautiful, and it's a very consistent track list that tells this story really well. There are different sections that sort of build that dark, twisted, and fantasy. Beautiful, dark, and twisted, not fantasy, sections of the album and give them distinct identity. I think the album has a very strong identity in and of itself. And I think that the climax is really strong. I think that it is that 3-song period we were talking about with Soul, Paul, Devil in New Dress, and Runaway, with that bar that we talked about a little bit at length there in Runaway being this defining moment of Kanye coming to terms with who he is and what his relationship to other people is. I think the album is very effective in all of that, and it's just a great track list. It's his best rapping in years, maybe even his best rapping on an album overall, but also his best singing, his best delivery. top 2 production. And that's really the thing. You can go down the line and think of any minute criteria that you ever want to use for an album and look at every Kanye album across any possible dimension, and this one's going to be in the top 2 or 3 for every single one. And that's why the album is great. It's just phenomenal on all fronts. So, now that I've given you a while there, Jeff.
Yeah, I can't wait to just reiterate everything you said. You mentioned that you love the music for the music, trying to keep away from like subjectivity and all that.
Well, I think that it's a larger discussion of subjectivity. Before I get all of the Rap Thought World haters on my ass. Yeah. Not that it's not subjective. I just
no, fuck you, Rap Thought World.
Yeah, Rap Thought World sucks. So. The bar that I was thinking about a few minutes ago was Me Found Bravery in My Bravado. And I remember, like, hearing that when I was 13, and it was, like, the first thing that, like, ever made me think, because I was just a 13-year-old boy. I didn't do that.
You just thought, this is dope and sounds good, therefore I like it.
Yeah, I heard, like, She Will, and I was like, whoa, by Lil Wayne. But this was, like, the first piece of art for me that kind of, it made me feel like Cameron in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. When he's just in the Chicago
Museum
of Art,
staring at
like a Sunday in the Park or whatever that painting is called. There's so many points on the album, and I've talked about all of Kanye's discography striking chords with me, given where I was at that point in time. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy has stricken a chord with me, no matter what I was going through. There's something in that music something in that album for everybody. I think regardless of what you're going through. I think that so much of the music could be interpreted in so many different ways that the accessibility or the relatability of it is kind of universal.
Yeah. But I think that's something that is inherent in the album.
Yeah, I think he brings that emotion, even if maybe you don't relate to what he's saying. I think that he does deliver his emotions in such a clear way.
Yeah,
that it works.
but I think that that's something that someone in India could relate to, or someone in a different part of the United States, or wherever you are, whoever you are. I think that's something that works for you.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's all I've got to say. I mean, if we do an episode about MBDTF, let me know. I'm here for it. But yeah, guys.
That's the ranking.
Word.
Yeah.
Should we go to the ranking slide and then?
Sure. Yeah. Let's go to the ranking real quick.
Are there any big disagreements that y'all have? That you need to bring
I don't
up
think so. I think that I was surprised when we came to do this this episode, and we were in so much agreement with our rankings.
Yeah,
we got through the first 4 albums without any changes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard discography to rank.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, you can really put any Kanye album everywhere and have me agree with it or love that take. I think the only exception to that would be Graduation in your top 3 and Yeezus is King in like your top 10. Yeah. So, but apart from that, I think I'd love to hear what you guys say. I'm gonna be under the radar, reading all your comments on RTW about this, or yeah.
Yeah.
But apart from that, that's all I've got to say, guys.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's our thoughts in a ranking. I'm sure people will disagree with us. I'm sure we'll have old heads telling us that we're idiot fucking kids and college dropouts. Actually, his best album. They're also going to be 19 and significantly younger than me and telling me that. But, but whatever.
I remember when we said we were going to do this for 30 minutes?
Yeah.
This was supposed to be 30 minutes.
How long is this video?
I don't know yet.
Oh, okay. I guess we'll find out. Well, for anyone who stuck around for the whole thing, really fucking appreciate you. And
absolutely.
Much love.
Love you guys.
And that's the podcast.
All right. Goodbye.
Deuces.